Hello, fans, friends, and everybody who loves online movie trivia. We are back, and I am so thrilled because we have an amazing show coming your way today. I am, of course, the Elk. You're welcome for being here with me, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts as we start talking movie trivia, all things Schmoedown, and, of course, some big revelations. As well, we'll be breaking down the free-for-all, and we have a very special guest for you. I'll be joined today by my co-host. That's right, the super producer himself, Chris Barnes is here. Our man across the pond, the man with all the numbers in his noggin. That's right, Keith Kilduff, back on the desk to join the entire Fearsome Foursome and the Revelations per Minute. Ryan Permison is here, ready to break it down and give you every opinion you never knew you wanted to hear. Plus, we're joined by, that's right, an incredible guest. We're thrilled to have him here. He is a luminary of the First Class League, and you know we love FCL up in this house. It's David the Dynasty Campbell. Free-for-all, Revelations, and of course the question everybody's been asking, is Geoff really the greatest trivia player of all time? We'll break it all down right now on This Week in the Schmoedown. And hello once again. Fantastic to have all of you here, our dedicated fans on This Week in the Schmoedown. Thank you for joining us. As always, hit those wonderful buttons, like and subscribe down on the bottom, and let's fire on into it because we've got a lot to cover. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't immediately go first to our wonderful special guest and say hello. He is the man, the myth. He started it all off in the FCL, and he danced around that title reign more than once. When it returns, hopefully we'll see him going all the way to that glorious belt, taking it from some luminaries such as The Flouse and, of course, Travis Fishburne. He is the Dynasty himself. Welcome to the show, David Campbell.
It's good to be back talking movie trivia. It feels like forever since I've been playing, since I've been talking. I'm just happy to have something to do. Again, Elk, I'm rusty, but hopefully I can shake that off. We can have a great time here today.
Well, I'm sure it will be a great time. We absolutely love that you're here with us, David. And we do hear that you had to spend some time with Keith when you were setting this up. We apologize for that, of course. Keith, it is good to have you back on the desk. I make fun a little bit, but you've been away off and on over the last few weeks. So we're glad to have you back on the desk as well, brother.
It's a pleasure to be back. And listen, I took a few weeks off, and then Ryan Permison took it as an excuse to talk about corruption every day, every week, every minute of the show. I'm back to make sure that that does not happen this week. But otherwise, it's great to be back among friends.
I see Ryan rocking that merch. Gotta love the Schmoedown merch. Get the shirt, wild berries, etc. But representing for the free-for-all winner herself, the Lady of Justice, Marisol McKee, doing it right in that matchup. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Guys, how about we just jump on into it and we cover a little bit of news real quick before we start talking all those big matches?
Let's go for it.
All right, so this week in Schmoedown news, we have a few things going on. We're going to get an entire breakdown at the end of this segment from David Campbell on his thoughts on this season of the Schmoedown so far. But first, a quick coverage for you. If you are a patron of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, of course, you have seen this. It is the return of the Star Wars division for this season. The very first match dropped on Patreon. It's Burkett versus Arsenault, and I know you guys are going to have a lot of thoughts about this. I'm going to go over to Ryan first because, Ryan, you're a big Star Wars guy. I say, with all sorts of Star Wars stuff in the back of CB's shot. What did you think of this matchup?
That's a good point. But still, I haven't seen this yet. So yeah, what a way to kick things off. I have not seen this match, but if I were hypothetically the hashtag who you got, I'm going with Ross from nowhere because he's from nowhere and he's good, like real good. And I don't know who this other guy is, so this is all news to me, but thanks for putting me on the spot here, Elk. I appreciate it. Not being prepared. This is great. It's a great start.
Well, it is a great matchup, and Ross is from nowhere, which is interesting for a Star Wars competitor to be from the, disembodied head of a Celestial from a Marvel movie. But, you come from where you come from. CB, I know you checked this one out, and I know you're a big fan of Star Wars as well. What did you think of this matchup?
I did check it out, and earmuffs right, and obviously if you haven't seen it, you don't want to get spoiled on what happened, but it was a close fought match, like you find with most of these Star Wars matches now. You know, these guys are incredible at what they know. I mean, yes, I've got a load of Star Wars stuff all over my wall there, but I couldn't compete in any of these matches. I'd have to read those Battles of the Galaxies and these dictionary things a lot more to actually be able to keep up. Yeah, it was a close match, 23-22. Ross actually got the win in the end. And, more than, it's not much more to say about it, really. It was a great match. As always, Zach's a great competitor. He did well last year. Ross obviously come into the Schmoedown last year. He struggled a little bit, I didn't think he would, but, he didn't actually get a win. But it's good for Ross to get his first victory in the Schmoedown and for us to continue on to this Schmoedown season with more Star Wars action, I hope.
Absolutely. Now, David Campbell, you are not a Star Wars competitor necessarily. Maybe you don't know your Tatooines from your Dantooines. I'm not sure. But, of course, you've got to respect the level of play from competitors who do compete in the Schmoedown in the Star Wars division, because definitely they go deep cut. Definitely we see a lot of difficult and very esoteric questions. Are you very happy to see the return of Star Wars to the Schmoedown this season?
Oh, definitely. I know my coruscants from my cronuts. I know what's going on. But this match was great to see the Star Wars division back. It's one thing that's been missing because it's a very distinct type of match you get in Star Wars. There aren't a lot of misses. In singles, there's not anything. IG, you can miss here or there. Star Wars, if you miss, that could be it. It's a very, very tense affair. And you see that Ross is from nowhere. For me, Ross will always be from the FCL, baby. And CP was talking about it. Tough time last year coming in for that tournament as part of the Den. However, his ability is beyond any dispute. And I think this is just the beginning of Ross here. We can see him going a run that will lead to that belt, in my opinion. He's a great guy, great competitor. I can't wait to see what happens with him next.
All right, and we are going to get the entire Dynasty breakdown, see what you thought of some other revelations so far this season. But before we do that, let's jump on over to Keith as well, see what Keith thought about Star Wars. Keith, this must be great for you. You are our stats guy, and when it comes to Star Wars, these competitors don't miss a lot. Must make your job easier.
Oh, hugely. I can listen. It's great to see Ross back. Obviously, he'll always have a place in our hearts here on the show. He's helped us out. He's abused me many times for my inability to call out, proper names and whatnot. But listen, it's good to get no more than any season. It's good to get an early win up. That's his first win now in Schmoedown, and it gets a pretty decent competitor in Zach. And listen, the sky's the limit for the guy.
And he's starting off the season well, of course. As you said, getting that win under your belt, especially early, very important. You want to establish yourself and make sure that you can get into a couple of those marquee matches. It means a lot more work, but it also means a lot more reward if you can be successful. But with that out of the way, and good luck to all the Star Wars competitors moving forward in the Schmoedown. Of course, we can't wait to see what kind of answers you pull out of your rear ends and say, what the heck? How could they even ask that? At least I'll be saying that. But David, what we're going to ask now is, you've been around, you've been checking out the Schmoedown. I'm sure you have. This season so far, before this week at least, anything that you saw that really got you excited?
Oh, there's a lot that got me excited. The new format I'm a huge fan of. I love Titans. I love the look of the studio. It just feels so good. A couple of things that I got under my skin a wee bit. The first thing was the breakup of corruption. I was terribly, terribly sad about, because as a man who've been competing in the FCL, but before that, watching this show for years, that team is a part of Schmoedown lore, a part of Schmoedown history. And for them to go out the way they did, it was on a number one away from the right answer that would have gotten the belts, and a win against Shazam. To even get in that position to win in your 5-pointer against Shazam, that is no easy feat. They almost pulled off what many consider to be the impossible at this stage, and to see Corruption go out, that really heartfelt moment at the end where they're hugging in the interview, it would bring a tear to a glass eye. It was a beautiful sight to behold. A good send-off for those guys, but they will be missed as a team. The other thing, Nick Harley, I just want to say, I am the Bobby Heenan in this scenario, and I told you all along what that guy was like. I told everyone what he was like from day one. And did anyone believe me? No. Jacoby Bancroft, great guy, lovely guy, foolish, forever trust in a snake in the grass like Nick Harley. Nick may be with Mr. Irwin right now, but I, like everyone else, can't wait for the downfall of this repulsive human being. This character is going to be, he's terrible. He's just such a terrible person.
Despicable.
Wow. Strong words from David Campbell. Perhaps we might see in the future something in the FCL. Maybe even, if we're lucky enough, David Campbell, you may make a Schmoedown appearance and you can tell Slick Nick in person. That is, of course, after you call his secretary and make, that's right, an appointment.
I'm all right. I'm actually all right. As much rubbish as I'll talk about Nick Harley, the character, the competitor is very good, and I would need some prep time before that were to happen. You know, I'm very rusty, like I said at the start. Let's not get this twisted. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just calling him a repulsive human being as a character. But behind the camera, great heel.
Well, of course, we all love to see the FCL competitors appearing in the Schmoedown, and Slick Nick, you can say a lot of things about him. You can call him despicable like David Campbell. You can call him just the best guy ever and a real good friend like I do. And you can call him in the morning to get that appointment for the matchup, but you cannot call him a weak trivia competitor, that's for sure. He's incredibly strong. And with Ethan Irwin at his side, that comeuppance you're looking forward to, David, I'm not saying it's not coming around. I'm just saying you might have to hold your breath for a little while longer. These two are definitely going to be tough to beat. They may even be the team that we see next attempting that impossible feat of climbing the mountain and taking down Shazam. Can they snatch thunder from the gods? That's for later in the season, of course. And right now, we want to talk about this season. So it's time to break down this week's matchups. We've got the free-for-all. That's right, 40 competitors, some surprise entrants, and a whole lot of fun coming your way. Of course, we've got this week's Titans matchups. Saul taking on Amaru in an inner geekdom battle for the ages, and Bateman and his new partner, a patron. Bateman being a nice guy, bringing up Geoff and giving him a chance to get over his nerves and try a little movie trivia, see if he can do anything with it. And also being so sweet to Peggy Gubbins and to David, the Survivor Jindoyan, we all know him, giving them a shot, an opportunity, and a chance to help out this new competitor who I think we all agree needed that help to get into it. We're going to talk about those matchups, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to, that's right, Keith Kilduff.
Let's get into this. The free-for-all, in my view, the best event in the Schmoedown of the entire calendar year. 40 competitors all going head-to-head. As we know, winner getting a title shot, number one contender on the line for the MVP. 40 competitors, and what a way this kicked off. The top five, Sam Levine, Bibiani, Paul Oyama, the database, and Barbarian. The Barbarian shutting his mouth off a little bit, saying that he was going to be the one to come out on top. And unfortunately, he was the first one to fall out of the first group of five. And then we got to see an old face, an old friend of ours, David, the Survivor Jindoyan, coming in at number 6, only lasting one round also. That brought in Liz Shannon Miller, and then her from the database got cleared out. Then we get Chance Ellison with a new look, a sort of like a, didn't want to say pimp, but not too far off it, but looking quite swagging himself, taking out Oyama with him. And then that brought in an interesting crew of Adam Witt and Brendan Meyer came in there. Unfortunately, Witt survived a bit, and then himself and Levine went out in the same round. That brought in JTE and Kaiser, and also Saul and Amaru took their spots in at this stage in the kind of the first third. Amaru and Saul going on a nice run, going 4 and 6 rounds respectively. Saul at one stage actually had gone 13 questions in a row, which was fantastic. And then we lost Kaiser, we lost JTE, we lost Janine, and then we lost Jacoby alongside Saul. Amaru still going strong, but then he goes out in and around kind of the 15-16 spot, where we managed to meet another old friend of ours, Travis Fishburne, coming in as a big surprise in as number 16. Stacey Howard, Adam Collins had joined the table at this stage, and Fishburne was making a little run himself. 6 rounds, 26 out of 30, and actually at one stage had the most consecutive answers of the whole event with 21, which is an unbelievable feat. And I believe 3 perfect rounds of 5 at one stage as well. Like, it's just fantastic on his MTS debut. So in addition to Fishburne, we get a guest appearance from Shannon Barney coming in for a 5-question round. Stacey Howard, Adam Collins and Whitney Seibold are all here at the desk at this stage. Shannon goes out and Ben the Boss Bateman joins. We lose Stacey in round 11, but then one of the big moments of the free-for-all is round 12. Fishburne, Bateman, Doug Benson, Adam Collins and Whitney Seibold. All on the last question. Fishburne's going for a perfect round. And if Benson hits it, Fishburne clears the table. And unfortunately, Benson doesn't. And then Fishburne gets killed in round 13. Himself, Marzonia, Adam Collins, and Whitney Seibold all get taken out by Ben on the last question of the Star Trek quote. That then brings a murderer's row completely from here on in. Mark Andreyko, a person, Elk, that you have a fondness in your heart for, coming back out of retirement. Video Drew. Dangerous Dan Murrell joins and Mike Kalinowski. We lose Video Drew and we gain Peggy Gubbins, and we lose Kalinowski. And then in the next round, who comes in at number 30? Only our old friend who was mentioned earlier in the show, Nick Harley, coming in for a nice round, who ends up going 6 rounds, 18 out of 30 questions. Dan is still chucking along nicely. Andreyko, Bateman, them guys are settling in here for the evening. And it is this last section really where in previous times and previous years where the winners have come from. It's always come in that kind of final third. With people who've drawn that number, that's where they get it from. So we lose Peggy, we lose Kevin Smets, then we lose Andreyko and Bateman. Harley is still there alongside Paul Preston and Dan Murrell. Clee Wiggins comes and goes, the same with Paige Forbetti, Ty Lieberman, Rick the Rager Radis, the best 36 competitor of the free-for-all of all time. Harley is still going strong, but he gets knocked out in the same round as Ty and Rick. And then we're coming down to the last kind of 3 or 4. Winston comes and goes alongside a table where we finally get our former singles champion, Marisol McKee, coming in at a sweet little number 38 alongside Preston Murrell and Ken Knapsack at 39, who announces himself from the position into the free-for-all, survives a round, and then it's lastly number 40, Sean Drew comes out, dances his way to take out Dan Murrell and Ken Knapsack. The Batman Mask of the Phantasm release date question is the one that unfortunately kills Dan. And then we're down to 2. It's Marisol and Paul Preston. They go 4 out of 5 in their respective round. We are into sudden death. They each go 1 for 1. Paul unfortunately misses the second question. And then it's Christina Ricci gets Marisol the victory, gets her the winning question, gets her the title shot of her choosing, going at a nice little rate of 16 out of 18 questions. Dan Murrell picking up the MVP, going 41 out of 50, lasting 10 rounds. Ben Bateman going 30 out of 40 as well. Preston went 27 out of 38. Like all the big hitters, the guys that you would expect are the ones making the big runs, doing all the running. But ultimately, it's the same old story, really, with the top end competitor coming out on top. Marisol McKee. So much to get into between Amaru and Saul having a nice run. Fishburne coming up, showing that his knowledge. Murrell, Harley, like there's so many layers, there's so many storylines coming out of this. But I think, listen, Parmesan, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes here now to get on your corruption shirt one last time and wax lyrical about Marisol. But listen, take it away.
Oh my goodness. Just when you thought the greatest faction in the history of this business was dead, because corruption as a team broke up the week before, right? Not anymore. No. Corruption was never dead. They were never going anywhere. They're always going to be here. They're always going to be running the show. Kalinowski is always going to be the one pulling the strings. But in this case, lucky 38 was the number for this year, because Marisol came in there and just took care of business, wearing her Encanto swag, her cosplay, representing one of the newest films in the Disney franchise or whatever. And she won. So you want to get your singles belt back, Marisol? Now you got a shot to do it. So you don't have to climb. You don't have to climb the ladder, brother, to get it. No, you got a shot at that belt. So we all know what's going to happen. We all know. Listen, it's not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy going up against Sam Levine, no matter what day it is, what time it is, what arena you're going to be sitting in, what kind of crowd you're going to be in front of. It doesn't matter. Sam Levine is at the peak, the top, the pinnacle of his game. But if there's someone who can do it from the NWO, brother, yeah. In corruption, it's Marisol. Marisol, congratulations to you. Congratulations to corruption. Look, Shannon came in there for 2 minutes, and that was funny as all get out. And then we got down to business. And Marisol took care of business. So now she's going to get the belt back. Corruption's going to end up at the top of the mountain, just like they did last year and the year before and the year before and the year before and the year before that. And Corruption's going to be running the show, just like always. So congrats to Marisol. Congrats to everybody in the free-for-all, because it was entertaining, to say the least. It was very entertaining. But big story here is the corruption is back in the saddle, and they got a shot to get that singles belt back, brother. Yeah. So once you're corruption for life. Anyway, end of rant. Go ahead.
David, we got to see an awful lot of nice FCL representation between guys who've been signed up and guys surprising. Marzonia came in for a round. Fishburne, obviously, as we alluded to, like that helps kind of the connectivity, say, of the two leagues.
It's the connectivity, and I think there are a certain set of trivia fans who have never given the FCL, I think, the respect it deserves. And I think the performances from the FCL alum and those coming up, making their debuts and appearances in this, takes that argument and blows it out the water. Travis Fishburne showed the world what an FCL champion should be and what our league is all about. He did it so proud. Nick Harley, personal character grievances aside, showed again why he is an S-tier trivia competitor. You talked about Alex, you talked about the Survivor, both of them coming in doing the business, both some nice trivia and some great character work, as we'll get into a bit later on with the Survivor. The FCL came to the free-for-all and the FCL conquered the free-for-all. I was so happy and so proud to watch what those boys were doing up there. It was brilliant.
Go on, CB.
So I was pretending I was Keith from freezing. I just wanted to actually follow on from that with Travis as well. Let me pop up these stats. Obviously, Keith, you alluded to obviously the most consecutive correct answers with 21, 3 perfect round 5, 3 perfect rounds. That was second only to Merle, who got 4, I believe. Obviously, yeah, Merle, he got the MVP, most rounds lasted, most points scored over those rounds. But Travis's average points per round was actually the highest in the entire I keep wanting to say first class league, free-for-all. So for me, I think he probably would be actually my MVP. That's who I was thinking as the match was coming to end. Who's going to get that MVP? Yes, it makes sense that Dan got it. But, for someone, yes, he's the FCL champion, but it's his first time in the Schmoedown proper, coming into a free-for-all, one of the biggest events of the year. And he had some top guys on the tables that he dispatched off throughout this tournament. So, like I said, for me personally, it would have been my MVP, but I completely understand why Dan was. But David made a good point. It just kind of shows how good some of these guys in the FCL really are, and there might have been a lot of Schmoedown guys, fans, kind of sleeping on them.
Elk, 40 competitors, 6 new wildcard slices, loads of storylines, surprises. Wrap this up for us if you can.
Will do, Keith. I mean, the free-for-all this year had a lot going on. Obviously, we are not sleeping on the man who is Travis Fishburne, the FCL champion. We knew what he could do. And with an average points of 4.33 or 86.6% points earned in the free-for-all, he is up there in the upper echelons. That's the kind of percentages for points earned that you end up seeing for players who've played in 10, 12, 15 matches, and we now consider legends of this league. This is an amazing performance. Can he hold it past the free-for-all? Who knows? Should he have been the MVP? In my mind, I've got to say there's a real good possibility for that. I think it is neck and neck between him and Dan, and I would not have been disappointed to see either one take it away. Of course, there's some characters that I love making appearances. The greatest of all time, Rick Radis, did a great job here. We had an amazing appearance by Slick Nick, who continues to impress and just be one of the finest people we know. Can't believe he had such a great time out there. It is the story of the FCL, but if I had to sum this free-for-all up in one word, if I'm giving it the subtitle, this is free-for-all Murderer's Row, because all through this matchup, what did we see? The table would be filled with people and a few would clear off, and all of a sudden you're looking at champions and high-level competitors all across the table. There were so many times I looked at 5 people on the table and said, holy crap, how do you compete against this? Just loads of talent throughout this free-for-all, a whole lot of fun. Did love seeing the managers come in there. Some did better than others, obviously. The story, though, it really boils down to some great FCL performances, some amazing tables full of competitors, and, of course, Lady Justice herself taking it down. Anybody out there who was thinking maybe this isn't going to be Marisol's return season, maybe she'll get her title match, won't close the deal, and that'll be the last we'll hear from her. Well, you know what? She just said no thank you and closed the door on that one. Marisol is going to be in any match she wants for a little while. And not to overlook the MVP himself. Hey, maybe it should have been Travis's to win, but I've got to say, for Dan Murrell to be running around the Schmoedown with a #1 contenders match, look at those numbers as well. 41 points, most earned, 10 rounds at the table. And as I said, not easy tables he had to face off against. 4, count them, 4 perfect rounds for Dan Murrell. Anybody out there who doesn't think that this guy with a loaded contendership match in his pocket is one of the most dangerous competitors in the Schmoedown, well, I mean, maybe you need to do some more studying. And I'm not talking movies, because this is not the man you want to see coming. Cue the Jaws music, folks. Between the two of these two, Marisol, Dan, both fighting into that title competition in the free-for-all. Everybody in the Schmoedown needs to be worried. They need to be prepared, because anything could happen. Any league it could happen in, any division it could happen in. But what is going to be sure is that when it does happen, there's a challenge coming. You've got to steel yourself. You've got to study harder than you ever have, because these two may be two of the hardest competitors in the history of the Schmoedown to overcome.
And what was interesting, what you just said there, Elk, actually, Sam Levine has looked unstoppable since he returned winning the belt. Except here. Except in this free-for-all. He had a couple of really shaky moments. He didn't maybe put in the performance you'd expect of the champion like Sam Levine. And you've got to think you want to nip that in the bud, because if you've got Marisol or Dan coming after you, I know what I want to see. I want to see a Dan Murrell at the top of his game versus Sam Levine at this level, because I think when they played for the title before, Sam wasn't quite at the echelon he then became. Sam versus Dan at that level will be amazing, but this performance for Sam Levine in the free-for-all should maybe worry him a wee bit. Can he keep it up against that type of competitor in a championship match situation? It can't be disputed thus far. I'm just saying cracks showed in this event.
Absolutely. It was a little tough for Sam. Little bit worried maybe that he missed a couple of questions. I don't think too much, because he is still Sam Levine. We know that the first thing on his mind is polishing that belt, and the second thing is just plain dominating at movie trivia. But he did make a short appearance. And while you mentioned that, David, I also want to throw a quick shout out. I think everybody here will agree to me, to perennial MVP of the free-for-all, perennial favorite of the event, William Bibiani. Not his best round this year, but always pleasant to see him in the free-for-all. Hopefully we'll see him return to form next year. It couldn't have lasted forever, but he is always entertaining and always really brings the show at the free-for-all. So a little surprised to see what happened with him. But again, with the caliber of competitors at this free-for-all event, with the way it was filling out, the mix of both old talent who you know are going to get 4 out of 5 questions regularly, and new surprising entrants that nobody knows anything about. Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? I'd say this may have been one of the tougher free-for-alls for competitors to navigate.
100%, and listen, I think congratulations to Marisol, congratulations to Dan, congratulations to everyone who had like a nice little run. But also, I think more to the point, congratulations to the crew for putting up with the unfortunate issue with the COVID protocol on the morning of the event and scrambling to try and figure it out, and giving us an amazing event still, all things considered, safe for everybody. And listen, congratulations all, and it'll be interesting to see how these all play out now over the next few months. But as we alluded to, Amaru and Saul had a nice little run at the free-for-all beside one another, and it just so happens that they just happen to be on Titans this week, taking on a kind of a pre-number-1 contender for the right to be the number-1 contender against Smets. But listen, let's get into it. Saul's third match in the studio, and it did not start well. The same as the previous two. In round 1, Amaru was up 9-6. Saul missing Jurassic Park, Marvel, scores and soundtracks, and graphic novels. Amaru only missing the Middle Earth question. You know, not what you want from a Saul point of view. You know, the demons have to be hitting in some manner that, listen, is this going to be the same as the previous last year against Parker and against Amaru? In round 2, we get a defer from Amaru to Saul, who spins away from Alien Predator, gets a wild card, and it turns out to be the Matrix series, which probably isn't a bad thing to get. Like, it's 4 movies. You know, you have to say, like, you know, of all the things that could have been a wild card in IG, that's maybe a little bit softer, so he should have been okay with it. He does go 4 or 5 for 6 points. There is an opportunity for a steal on the second question. Amaru doesn't take it, but then Amaru comes back for his round 2, takes the Worlds of Marvel on his first spin, and he also goes 4 for 5 for 6 points. But the difference is that he gives up the steal and Saul takes it, which is this question with Mark Ruffalo, Paul Bettany, and Corey Hawkins is in what MCU film. He says Civil War, which is a strange one, seeing as Ruffalo's not in that, although you could argue he is if you think of the footage that Ross shows the crew when they're talking about the Sokovia Accords. Maybe, but the correct answer being Iron Man 3. And it just brings that gap down from a 3-pointer to a 2-pointer. It's 15-13 to Amaru now after round 2. And it just means that it's within that one question mark in the final round, which always is better than Saul needing to burn 2 to get ahead of Amaru. He levels up on his 2. Amaru hits back. Saul gets his 3, knowing that Uncle Ben's trophies in the Amazing Spider-Man movies were for bowling. Amaru misses his dystopian time travel, not knowing that Time Cop was the 1994 film. We get a challenge on the table from Winston saying that it wasn't included in the specific category of IG films. As they correctly said, in my view, they came back and said, listen, it is subject to change, the master list is, and so therefore, we move on. The challenge was upheld, and it's on Amaru to save the match here. He hits Punisher Warzone on his 5, bringing us to 22-18, and then Saul's 5 in the Planet of the Apes, the category that killed him against Amaru last year, beautifully, poetically coming back for him, knowing that Conquest of the Planet of the Apes was the answer to the quote, tell me, Breck, how do we differ from the dogs and cats that you and your kind used to love? Why did you turn us from pets into slaves? And your winner, 23-22, Saul, goes on to face Kevin Smets next week in the number 1 contender match. And you have to say, all things considered, he took a bad round 1 on the chin, rallied in round 2, got a bit of luck with the 3-pointer in round 3, seen it out though, lights out on his 2, 3, and 5, and is worthy of his number 1 contender match. And listen, we'll get into that later on, but for now, congratulations to Saul. But I think that the story is Saul, but Amaru still has an awful lot to take out of this fight, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely, Amaru, especially, but as we were just talking about the free-for-all, both of them coming off the back of the free-for-all, well, they both had great performances there, coming straight now into this match this week. It's a shame for Amaru because he obviously had the better of the match through the first 2 rounds. And it's just, unfortunately, he missed the questions with the highest points value with in the third round, 3-point question. And Saul just stormed. I mean, that 5-point question for Saul's, I had no idea. I mean, how many Planet of the Apes movies has actually been to get a quote like that? I mean, geez. But no, fair play to both of them. They both did fantastically well, especially, like I said, coming off the back of the great performance in the free-for-all. Bear in mind, they are more inner geeks and players anyway. That performance they had there, we probably should have spoke about that a bit more, the fact that they managed to last through the free-for-all as far as they did. So, fantastic start to the year for both of them, I think. And congratulations to Saul for getting through and getting his number 1 contender match. How he will get on with Smets, we'll see that in the next week aspects of the show. Someone might be on the fence, but we'll have to wait and see, won't we, who will that be? But yeah, congratulations to both of them. Fantastic performance and a great way to kick off this week's Titans.
Yeah, and you've got to look at the questions Amaru missed here, because there were 2 big swing questions. The round 2 one is very well written by the writers, because Mark Ruffalo is only in the post-credit scene of Iron Man 3, but his presence at the front of the list is the thing that puts you off, because you're thinking, oh, he must have some sort of substantial role here, and I think that's maybe what's got to Amaru there, has messed him up going into the multiple choice. Maybe he forgets about that post-credit scene because it's not one of the most impactful or memorable in the MCU, it has to be said. So you get why he misses that one there maybe as well. And I think it comes down to the IG brain, because they do, unlike singles, have a finite amount of movies to go off of. So for them, the list becomes very important. And if you're trying to compartmentalize your thinking like that, your brain instantly goes to the file dystopian and time travel. And if you're not seeing that movie there in your mind's eye, it can get a bit difficult. I think the challenge being rejected was the right decision in the end. But from his thinking and from the way an IG brain has to work, you totally get why he's maybe forgot or ruled out that movie in his own mind at that point.
Absolutely. You guys are making some great points. I want to touch on a couple of them. But first, let me just say, you all know the Elk never apologizes. But I will say, perhaps myself and Ryan might have underestimated Saul a little bit last week. We did pick Amaru to take the win here. But of course, I think we're borne out by the fact that this was a very close match. And Chris, you started talking about those big point values in the final round. And David, you mentioned swing points, that steal in the second round in what ended up being effectively a 1-point game, fives aside. This is how close this was. This is where we start to talk strategy. And I've always been a big fan of repeats. Perhaps more repeats could have been used a little earlier by Amaru. Maybe he could have saved one question, because in the end, ultimately, we know that's what he would have needed to make all the difference here. One big question, especially in round number 2 with those big swing points. I've said it before, and I will say it again for competitors out there who maybe haven't heard it. In round 2, a miss with no multiple choice and a steal is not 2 points. It's a 4-point swing between the two scores. That means you will not get this many points on anything except a 5-pointer. This is one of the most important things in the matchup, and holding on to your repeats for the end can net you some points, but it's always worth using them early if you can. Speaking of, love the strategy of the challenge by Winston Marshall. That's a sign of a good manager, someone who will hear something, and within a very short period of time, he will know how to respond. He has a cogent argument. You know I'm a fan of putting those challenges out there. Not often you're going to have the opportunity in a matchup to get a valid challenge and get those points back, so you may as well take that shot whenever you're close. That's what Winston did. He saw an opportunity. I think he made a good case for himself. Ruling didn't go for him, but I love the challenge. So good strategy there. Saul definitely taking his time with the questions that he did get. That's ultimately going to end up getting him the victory. But it did come down to that final round and those big point values. I don't know how many times I can say it. I understand it's necessary for the Schmoedown, for the FCL. It helps build these matches in a certain way, and there has to be extra value at the end. But I've always been a little put off by the fact that so many points are available for single questions. You go through the entire first round and you miss one question, you have 9 points. You get one steal in round 2 and you're 5, only 2 questions instead of 10, and you get 9 points. This is why it's so important to use those repeats, particularly at the end of round 1 and into round 2. This is why it's so important to stay on your game and not give up too many opportunities in that round with the stealing available. Both played well. Amaru missed a couple of questions that perhaps he's kicking himself about now, but I think with the showing that they both made, perhaps this isn't the last time we'll see Amaru fighting towards getting the title in the Inner Geekdom. Definitely he's capable of getting back there. The real story, of course, as you guys mentioned, is going to be next week. Saul facing off against an even bigger challenge. I think that's fair to say. The returning, the driven, the absolute monster of IG that is Kevin the Smasher Smets. That's going to be a hell of a matchup, and I can't wait to see it. Congrats to Saul. Kudos to Amaru for a match well played. And yeah, this one was exciting from start to finish. I think I really liked what they did in this matchup.
Parmesan, see us out in this match.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Anyway, no, I always have something to say. You know that.
You do.
Know that.
You do.
But I will say this. Rue and I go way back. We're good friends. And I really wanted him to win this one. I thought he potentially could have mopped the floor with Saul because, you know, if the questions went his way. But unfortunately, it didn't. Rough day at the office, Rue. But listen, this, you know, at the end of the day, this is one of the biggest upsets I've seen in this company. Saul beating Rue, man, that's an upset. But you know what? That 5-pointer that Saul pulled, huge pull. Huge. Absolutely massive. No way would I have been able to pull that because I haven't seen a replay of the H movie, obviously. So, Saul, congrats to you. Listen, Saul, I didn't really like you for a long time, but now that you've done so well in the free-for-all, you're doing well with this matchup against my boy Rue. What's up, Rue? I respect you, Saul, and I wish you the best moving forward against Smets. I mean, that's a tall mountain to climb, brother, especially with all the challenges that Smets has been through personally, and now that he's back in the MTS, hungry for blood. That is going to be a brutal fight to the finish. But that's what we want in this sport. We want it to come down to the wire. We want it to come down to those 5-pointers. We want it to be as competitive as it can get in this business. And I think Saul is going to give Smets a good run. I think Smets is going to do the same thing for Saul. Saul has improved in certain cases here in this company. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Saul does with this win, because now he's got his wind under this belt, because he's been struggling, let's be honest. He's got a wind under his belt. He's got a little wind in his sails. He's got a little pep in his step, you know, a little extra sauce in the recipe. this is going to be something to watch next week between Saul and Smets. I mean, the Hulk versus Saul, who doesn't really have a nickname yet, although I'm calling him the Enforcer because, as we'll get to in a little bit later here in the next matchup, he earned that moniker, at least in my opinion. But Saul versus Smets, in the words of that guy from the New York Jets in the NFL, can't wait. Like, I can't wait to see this match. It's going to be so much fun. And the IG division is getting harder and harder and harder and rougher and rougher and rougher. Man, these question writers are not goofing around, Campbell. They are not messing at all. They're not missing a beat.
They're not messing a beat.
IG is heating up, brother. Yeah. So
it does have to be
Saul, but good luck against Smets because that is not going to be easy.
It does have to be said, though, as well. Ryan calls it an upset, and we're talking about the questions that Amaru missed. But when you're Saul and you're coming in, a digital player in studio, clearly I think nerves did get to him in the beginning with that. And then to come into this round one against Amaru Moses, who you know is a top-tier IG player, to go free back, it would be very easy at that point to get in your own head and give up. But Saul never did that. Saul is a fighter and Saul is a battler, and you've got to think going up against Kevin Smets next week, it doesn't really... I'm not saying it doesn't matter what happens in round one, but we've saw today, Saul has that ability to bounce back, and he's the type of guy you can never rule out at any point during the matchup. I think that's what impressed me most about Saul, was the mental fortitude that he showed in this one.
100%. Listen, congratulations to Saul. Moves on to take on Smets, and we'll all get our views in on that later. So here we are, main event of Titans. It's all this kind of the den sort of, I don't know what you would call it, internal dispute kind of ideas that they're throwing around. It all started at the end of Free4all when Ben and Kate came up to Peggy and said there was an opportunity to get back on the den, and this idea of coming out and that Ben was going to play with a patron of his and that Peggy was going to find a partner, and they were going to have a teams match, and then at the end of this, we're all going to come together as one big happy den family. An interesting way to pitch things, but I think we would all be surprised if we weren't just a little bit sort of, wary, shall we say, of this. But listen, PG goes off. She sells it to the Survivor. It's a good opportunity to showcase new talent in the league. He's in. He's talking in third person. It's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic move from a digital character into, an in-studio. And it just goes to show also, the levels that kind of improvement that just comes from that as well. But listen, let's get into the match. It's Bateman and Geoff, or, some sort of psychedelic fella that should be in like some hill fest that was on in Dublin last weekend, taking on PG and the Survivor. Let's get into this. Round one ends 2016 to Bateman and Geoff. They both go perfect 10s, both missing their bonus question. PG and Survivor both get 8s, which is respectable enough for both competitors, it has to be said. Bateman and Geoff decide to defer to PG and Survivor, and they get Jennifer Anderson on their second spin. They go 4 out of 5 for 6 points, but they give up a 1 point steal. But this allows Ben and Geoff then on their second spin, taking Newman and Redford. They clear the table 5 for 5 for 10 points, 31-22 after round 2. And it kind of the writing's on the wall here. PG gets their 2-pointer in Oscars, but the Survivor can't hit the Harrison Ford question for their 3-pointer to keep them in the game. And your winner, 31-24. And then as it transpires, Bateman takes the mic because he loves the spotlight. Fair play to him. And then pretty much just says that this was all a ruse, that this was never going to happen at all. And as it turns out, Geoff is not Geoff, or my name is Geoff, or any other of the memes that have been going around over the weekend. But Geoff is in fact Dan Murrell. And Dan Murrell is now gone full heel, goes after Ellis, goes after Guy, goes after Bibiani, goes after the whole league. He has been absolutely poisoned beyond control. But I do like it, I'm not going to lie. Danger Zone are still together. They have a number 1 contender match in the bag due to Kaiser's deal at the start of the season that he agreed with Harloff. So not only is he burning PG, is he burning the ground, he's burning Kaiser, he's burning everything. These guys are just scorching the earth. Kate Mulligan is loving every single moment of it. But it has to be said that PG and Survivor played a nice tight game against two unbelievable top... Well, obviously we know Merle's the GOAT, but Bateman's probably top 7, top 8 competitor of the entire league. I would like to see PG and Survivor stay together. I think that's a nice little, that's a nice little team that they could, definitely kick on and develop from here. There's so much questions out of this. we had a small bit of heel Merle back in 2016, 2017, but this is the full works. Goes after Frank Janisha after the end credit scene, tells Kevin Smets to get a new hero. And, ultimately, like, moving away from this, the bigger question is, who does Danger Zone now face in their number one contender match to get a shot? But listen, so much to get into. Campbell, I'd say you were loving every second of this.
Oh, I was loving every second of it. Right from the beginning, the Survivor coming out, the Ultimate Warrior vibes of this man. It was ecstatic. I loved it. A great character, well done. Peggy Gubbins, a fan favorite last year. Not the fan favorite in the fan favorite sort of way, but a true sort of fan favorite for the league. Coming into the Geoff stuff, really funny, but the match that was played, it just goes to show how tight it is to really challenge that top-tier singles competitor. Because you wouldn't say that Peggy or Survivor had a bad game in this one. But it's just not getting those perfect rounds when Geoff did. Giving up the steal in round 2 when they didn't. Newman, obviously one of Ben Bateman's favourite actors. I think his favourite actor of all time. When you have a TikTok account, there's a lot of data you can get in a man. And that is something that we found out through that. They didn't have a bad game, but when it comes down to those fine margins against those great competitors, the great competitors are just going to get to the point where they can get that TKO. And that's what happened here. Expendables 2 instead of Expendables 3, you don't get much closer than that. And the after-match antics, simply despicable, Keith. Simply despicable. Yeah. I have been a fan of Dan Murrow since the Scream Junkies days. I'm thinking about unsubscribing. Ben Bateman, I had to expect this from him. I told you when you came to Glasgow, Keith, over waffles, that there was no way he was nurturing any new talent in the league. The only new talent that he'll nurture is his own mirror, if he brought that on stage with him. Ben Bateman is the ultimate narcissist of the movie trivia Schmoedown, and these two team with Kate Mulligan makes me physically sick. It makes me sick. It makes me ill, and I can't stand for it any longer.
And now for a positive spin. On things, Elk.
Yeah, Lord knows.
I've been listening to you guys talk, and I've got to say, I don't disagree that there's a decent match here for Peggy and for the Survivor, and it's good to see they did compete, and David is not wrong when he says that it is those little margins. Earlier, I talked about big swing points in another matchup. Now I'm going to talk about those little points, those 1-point questions that you get early. By knocking down as many as possible, you put yourself in a better position. That is what separates the S-tier players like Geoff and like his partner, Ben Bateman, both S-tier players. Clearly, they can rack up those little points here and there that's going to get you to the end. Also, I'm hearing a lot of words thrown around. Sick to my stomach. He poisoned his mind. Who poisoned the mind of Dan Murrell? He's the greatest of all time. He does it every single time he goes out there. We all agree he's the GOAT, and he's not wrong. He's not poisoned. He's just seeing the light finally. People who talk about the Schmoedown all day long, just like us, and they're forgetting about Dan Murrell. They're talking about the title picture, and no one's talking about Dan Murrell. If I'm Dan Murrell, I'm going to be annoyed by that. I'm going to be fired up. So what does he do? He comes in, he gets the best partner he possibly can, the one he already had. He locks in a number one contenders matchup. He gets a dominating victory right here, and he gets to stand up and speak his truth to the world, and I am here for it. Dan Murrell, keep telling it like it is. Keep going towards those titles. I'm sure you'll have a lot of them on your shoulders once again this season, because you are exactly what you say you are, the GOAT, the best there has ever been. Dan Murrell and Ben Bateman played this match perfectly, and their opponents, they played like a fiddle. Peggy Gubbins fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and I am sorry she had to experience it, but sometimes there's injustices in the world, and Dan Murrell was just standing up against one of those injustices. How dare the fans of the Schmoedown forget about the greatest player to ever lace up the boots? Dan Murrell is the king of the league. He's the top of the mountain. He is on Rushmore for just about everybody, and everybody out there seems to be forgetting about Dan Murrell, fading away like the picture in Back to the Future. I don't think so. This is a man who's going to play a Chuck Berry song and get back in that DeLorean. He's going to win his way to the top once again, and he couldn't have a better partner or a better position to do it from than with Ben Bateman and Kate Mulligan. I'm looking forward to seeing what these two bring to the table.
Parmesan, go on. I know you're frothing at the bit there.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Bateman bring up the new talent as as a bit of a new iteration of his life, a new iteration of his character, whatever it was. But you know what? Him being the sadistic, twisted, evil, maniacal, backstabbing punk that we know him from Team Action, fine with me. But listen, Dan Murrell going full on Darth Vader, going dark side. Woo! That's going to be an interesting card to play in the MTS, my friends. Let me tell you. And not only that, they got 2 cards in the deck. They got the #1 contenders match in the teams division, but he also is the MVP of the free-for-all. So Murrell has 2 cards to play in this deck of cards. So this shark, where, you know what they say, an angry Dan Murrell is a dangerous Dan Murrell. So if you thought Dan Murrell was dangerous before, and now he's gone full-on heel and he's breaking necks and cashing the checks, this is going to be something to see, folks. I'm not going to lie. I'm intrigued to see where it goes, even though we all know they're going to land flat on the face, because good always wins. So we know that's going to happen. But I will say, as someone who's known Peggy for a good while, she and I have been in a number of episodes of Fantasy Film Fights together, and we've had a lot of fun. We've had some good times. We've had a few discussions here and there. Listen, girl, you put up a fight, and you're going to be back, and you're going to get through this. You're going to be fine, because you and David Jandoyan, sorry, I know the Survivor thing, I'll still call you that, but it's David here, okay? So David Survivor Jandoyan teaming up with PG. Listen, Peggy's a sophomore. David is, new-ish in the MTS, so this is fresh talent. This could really work as a tag team. I'd like to see a little bit more of these 2 moving forward, but also the biggest thing that happened to me in this matchup was the aftermath. After the reveal was said and Ben Bateman's got the stick and he's hooting and hollering and saying, I'm the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be, shut up, y'all, we got this dude, Saul, comes back out and nearly breaks Bateman's neck. He's like, hey, man, you can't do that. Like, I'm going to, beat the crap out of you. Don't mess with me, man. Don't mess with me, man. And he's coming to the aid of Peggy and Sarah. I'm like, oh, my God, this guy he's an interesting dude. I like what I see here. I like it. I like it a lot. So, Saul, I'm impressed. I respect you. I want to see what you do next week against Smets. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with you being the new, quote-unquote, the enforcer of the company, the enforcer of the MTS. You're going to keep things safe for competitors. You're going to keep the bad people at bay, keep the good guys winning. So that's good. That's good business. That's good for money. It's good for ratings. So I'm very curious to see where this is going to go. Now, I know they're not going to form a faction or a triangle, baby. I don't know if that's going to happen between Saul, David, and Peggy, but if it does, I'd be cool with it because it's new, it's fresh, something interesting that we put in the show and the MTS on Friday Night Titans, as if Friday Night Titans couldn't get any more interesting. So I'm very curious to see where this goes. But Saul, thanks for coming to PG and Survivor's Aid and, laying down the law and grabbing people by the neck and saying, don't do it. You can't do it. So I like that. I like he got in people's faces. I like the intensity, Saul. I like it. So good matches, good questions by the question writers. Once again, my hat's off to you. Good questions, no doubt. But, the big things that happen here is Dan Murrell goes full heel and he's evil. And Saul being the new enforcer of the company. I respect that. So as I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, expect the unexpected in this company this season. So congrats to the MTS because, ladies and gentlemen, Friday Night Titans is it's getting better and better every week. I don't know how they're gonna keep doing this for the next, how many weeks do we have left in the year here? Like 40 weeks left, 35 weeks left? I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I'm up for the ride. Are you, Campbell?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? We're talking about the Danger Zone #1 contenders match. Keith is right. I don't know who Danger Zone will play for that match. I don't know if they get to dictate who's going to be against, in which case it's probably going to be 2 of Ben Bateman's patrons or something like that, whoever they can get in the studio to get them an easy match. But you're right, this could be, and Elka's right to some extent as well. I don't often agree with what that silver-tongued devil says, but I do have to say, maybe people weren't talking about Dan Murrell enough. He is the Babe Ruth, to use the American comparison, of movie trivia. So he's always going to be in the conversation, always going to be in the title picture. But it seems like the spirit of John Roca has taken him over, and now he wants everyone to hear him say it. I don't know why. He feels the need.
CV, give us your thoughts on let's see this matchup.
To be honest, a lot of my thoughts have actually been said from between Ryan and Andrew. they talk enough, don't they? So, but no, Peggy and the Survivor, obviously, unknowingly, their cards were pretty much stacked against them in this match anyway. Obviously, they didn't know what they were going in for, really, and they did well. They're both relatively new to the league. Peggy had a few matches last year. Obviously, the Survivor's only been in the FCL, so they did okay, but the cards were stacked against them from the start, and I do like what you said. I think you said, Keith, potential look a good team, though, because I thought they complemented each other well. So going forward, I'd like to see them actually play a few more matches together, maybe focused on this teams league between them, kind of support each other through this kind of first proper season for them. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much where I want to go. And as far as Dan goes, well, him and Bateman, they basically just I kind of pictured it as you was walking out of the studio. If they just turn the camera angle around, they'd be walking to us with a big fire going up behind them where they just kind of burnt the whole place down, burnt everyone down. Smets, Ellis, man. What? I'm lost for words with it, to be honest. But you know what? I do actually quite like it as well. I can't help it. It's just you know what? It's good to see this different Dan Mel. He has very much been like the kind of straight edge kind of face, just on the fact that he's always been generally a good guy anyway. So it's quite good to see this different side of him. But God help everyone who's got a belt, because he's got shots to get in both of them now. So we're getting the teams and the
potentially all of them. He keeps
yeah.
using that inner geekdom. Star Wars.
There's a million things that could happen this season, and we're only just getting started. That's the insanity of this sport, of this season. It's insanity times 1,000, but it is so entertaining to watch at the same time. Whether you're rooting for the baby faces or the heels, it doesn't matter. You're going to get your money's worth every single night on Friday Night Titans, baby. It's coming. Anyway,
you just can't put a price on.
Let's get out of here. We've had too much to drink already.
Agreed, Parmesan. Listen, let's cut this and let's look forward to what's going on next week in the Schmoedown.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this Friday Night Titans is getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter every week. And this next week will be no exception. Why? Because it's an Inner Geekdom #1 contenders matchup between the returning from all the health difficulties, all the challenges, all the brutality that Kevin the Smasher Smets went through to come back to the arena filled with over 20,000 screaming fans chanting his name. Smasher, Smasher. He's back, Jack. And he is going to be back going up against Saul in a #1 contenders match for the Inner Geekdom belt. My goodness gracious. I mean, this really could go anywhere, really, because now that we've seen Saul improve his game, he's been doing a little bit of studying here and there. I'm sure he's hitting the books pretty, hot and heavy and hard for this matchup this week, like really hard, brother. Yeah. So very interested to see where this goes. I mean, granted, I'm still going to give the slight edge to Smets. Just because he has been waiting for this moment for over 18, 20 months? 20 months? It's a long time, man. It's a very long time. And Saul, you've had recent matches lately, being in the free-for-all and going up against Amaru and stuff like that. So, listen, both of these competitors are doing quite well for themselves up to this point. But I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Kevin the Smasher Smets. And that's not a slight against Saul. Listen, Saul, I started following you on Twitter this past week because I was so impressed with your matchups within the free-for-all and going up against my boy Rue, even though I rooted for Rue against you. Sorry. It's nothing personal. It's strictly business. But now that we're following each other on Twitter and we're friends now, it could go either way, gentlemen, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Kevin the Smasher Smets. But David, the Dynasty Campbell, who we hope to see come back and really achieve your glory of having that dynasty and having a belt on your shoulder, I'm sure it would look very good on you. And things like that. But here's the hashtag here, David. Who you got?
I agree with what you've said, Ryan, and I just want to give the praise to Saul. Saul has been a player he's a battler, he's a fighter, he's an intense competitor who wears his heart on his sleeve, but it's Kevin Smets it's Kevin Smets. He is on the Mount Rushmore of inner geekdom for a reason. He is a champion coming back for a belt that he never really felt he should have lost in the first place. He has got redemption against Chandru. That's done. That's over. Now it's back to the hardware. Now it's back to getting that gold around your waist. And I just think, in terms of motivation, Saul has overcome this in-studio blip that he's had. That's all great. That's well and good. But you're coming up against a hungry Kevin Smets. I just think that it's an obstacle for Saul that's too big to overcome. I'm going with Kevin Smets. But after the fight we saw from Saul against Amaru, you'll never be able to count him out at any point in this matchup.
Very true, very true. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us, Dynasty Man. So, before his internet cuts out for the 50 millionth time, I gotta go over to the guy known as Stats Kid, Keith Kilduff. I gotta ask you the question. Who do you think is going to come out on top in this matchup when it comes to the Inner Geekdom #1 contenders match between Smets versus Saul? Who you got?
So I think that a lot of this, I think this is a round one. This will decide this match. I think if Saul can hold himself together and get better than 6 and get kind of like 8, 9 and be within touch and distance of Smets, then he can bring this deep. But I think he can't. He got away with one this week against Amaru, all things considered. I don't think he can do the same thing against Smets. And like Smets came back in after his absence and he missed one question in round 1. Other than that, perfect against Chandru and nearly didn't lose. Like, that's what you're up against when you're playing the like of Kevin Smets. So it's a tall order. If I was going to Vegas and putting money on this, I'm lamping on Smets. But I think if Saul can get a good round 1 into him, he's got a chance.
There you go. I'm glad we understand each other. We're going to hop on the first flight out. You and I are going to fly out to Vegas, put some money down, make some money next weekend. You know why, Keith? Because you and I are so money, we just don't even know it. Like a big bear, man. So with that being said, speaking of bears and animals and all that stuff, Elk, I got to ask you, who do you think is going to win this one between Smets and Saul?
I mean, this is going to be an interesting matchup. We've talked a lot about Saul. It really has been the Saul show in the Schmoedown for the past couple weeks. That's tough to say. Saul show in the Schmoedown. Saul show in the 3 times fast, folks. And I'm not minding it at all. Although I will say, perhaps Saul getting away with 2 things in that matchup against Amaru. He steals a win that maybe he was falling away from. He also, shortly later, almost commits an act of violence on set against a fellow competitor. I seem to remember the rules of the Schmoedown being that that's not acceptable. Andrew Guy certainly got into a lot of trouble back in the day. So I'm wondering if there's any fallout going to happen there, because that was a questionable moment. And will Saul have a questionable moment coming up against Kevin Smets? Well, there's a lot of factors to consider. That first round, as Keith said, going to be very important. And I think he's right about the fact that Saul does have to stay close, probably closer than he did against Amaru, because if you give up a couple of points to Kevin Smets, there's less chance he gives up steals in round 2. There's less chance he gives you opportunities. And there's a lot less chance, just based on his numbers, that he misses as you go deeper into that matchup. Even when he does miss, usually he's very close. Of course, Kevin Smets, you don't always see the ring rust evidenced right away, but he was away for a while. It's been a long time since he's regularly competed in the Schmoedown, and you have to point out Kevin Smets not only away from his movie trivia friends, away from the chance to study, but he's facing off against an even bigger opponent while he's away. That could have sapped him a little bit. I mean, it's not easy going through what Kevin Smets went through. Does that mean he'll slow down a step? Maybe. And Saul has certainly been stepping it up, so he's going to give him a fight. But in the end, like the rest of you guys, and maybe I'll be disappointed like I was last week, but if I'm going to say one way or the other who's going to win this matchup, it's very, very difficult to not immediately pick Kevin the Smasher Smets. And even with some objective thought and a long time thinking about all the possibilities, I've got to say, I think it's very, very, very unlikely that Saul takes the victory. I'd love to see him have another good showing. Obviously, he's done well for himself, and having that continue would be good for him moving forward into the season. But in the end, I think the Smasher will do what his name suggests and smash this matchup. I'm going to go with Kevin Smets.
There you go. Very, very good thoughts from Andrew the Elk. Kel, appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, Daniel-san, show me sand the floor. Show me paint the fence. I don't want you on the fence, okay? Get it straight, CB. Get it straight. All right? Hashtag who you got. Smets versus Saul. Smets has been out for a while. You know, he's made appearances on the show here and there, but he hasn't really competed. Whereas Saul, he's been in the ring countless times the last couple of weeks. So he's got to, he maybe have a few cards here. Maybe one up on the Smasher. Yeah. But don't count out the Smasher. So here's the table for you there, CB. Who do you think's got it? You think it's going to be Smasher walking away with this pretty well, or do you think Saul is going to pull yet another upset in this sport known as movie trivia Schmoedown, CB? And don't give me the whole, I'm just going to ride the fence for the 80th week in a row. No, I want a straight answer from you, one way or the other. Hashtag who you got, CB. Is it going to be Smets or is it going to be Saul?
Well, there's a wet paint sign on my fence at the minute, so I can't sit on it. So it's Smets for me. All the way, if Smets goes perfect, I don't think Saul, even at his best day, will keep up with it. I don't want to sound like a broken record that the rest of the guys said, but if Saul has a first round like he did against Amaru, he's not going to catch up. Smets won't let him catch up. It would take Smets to have a bad day, and Saul would have to have not a bad day. That's not quite fair on Saul, because I think Saul is still very good, but Smets is at a different level. I think he's been the champion. We've seen him go matches not missing questions. We've seen him just go maybe just miss one. Not seen Saul do that yet. Seen him go perfect. So I am not on the fence. For me, it's going to be Kevin Smets, but you know what? I would love to see Saul actually get a win out of this one, just for how his season's gone so far. And as far as the violence goes, what we saw last week, it's maybe more of a necessary violence than Drew Guys was. Maybe.
No, that was full-on violence. I mean, Saul just grabbed him by the collar and threatened him. I wouldn't mind seeing Bateman getting punched out, maybe even Merle for that matter. But you know what? That's not up to me. That's up to the chairman. That's up to the business. It's up to the company. It's up to the people in the suits that are sitting backstage keeping an eye on the action. So we'll find out, guys. I'll tell you what. Anything is possible in this sport. Anything is possible within the MTS. More specifically, anything can happen on Friday Night Titans. We've seen that countless times already. And the season's only a few months young. So, you know what I mean? Anything's possible. Anyway, Andrew, the Elk, Lions, and Tigers, and Bears. Oh, my. Andrew, the Elk, Kelk, take us out, man.
All right. Well, I do want to say it's been an amazing week in the Schmoedown. Of course, it's free-for-all week. How could we not have had a good time? Lots of competitors appearing. We want to throw another shout out to all the FCL competitors who made their debuts, who've impressed so much. Travis Fishburne, genuinely in the contention for MVP of the free-for-all. Some people on this very program believe perhaps he should have gotten that win. I don't totally disagree. Very impressive by him. Of course, the Survivor getting a lot of face time. Love the FCL competitors coming up. Congratulations to Marisol McKee on her victory in the free-for-all, with Marisol and Dan Merle running around with a combined title match and 2 #1 contenders match in their pockets. Everybody in the league is on notice. These two could legitimately crush anywhere they go. So watch out for that. And a great Inner Geekdom #1 contenders match coming up. We're all calling it for the Smasher. Saul, your chance to surprise us once again. I would absolutely be thrilled to see it. Although, again, I'm just not entirely sure it will happen. But we've broken it all down. We've had a wonderful special guest. So let's start off with that and say, David, the Dynasty Campbell, you are a delight. It's always good to see you. And any of our FCL friends making an appearance is something that brings joy to our hearts. So thank you so much for joining us. And we'll start off with you before we get out of here. David, I'm sure you're online. I'm sure you're doing all sorts of interesting stuff. Where can folks find you?
Yeah, go to Twitter, David Campbell _5, Instagram, David Campbell _10. I've just finished a short film that will be going online soon, so keep an eye out for that.
All right, David Campbell, always busy in all aspects of the film business, it seems. You are a filmmaker, and you've done some great work in that field. So, guys, make sure you check out David Campbell, and make sure you tweet at Christian Harloff that David Campbell needs to be in the next Free-for-all as well. I'm sure some of us can get together enough money for a plane ticket for you, David.
Get a boat. Get a boat. I'll slide over in the boat.
All right, so he's going to travel with Brad Gilmore is what I'm hearing. Hopefully that'll be an interesting trip for you, and hopefully we will see you eventually making your debut as well, David. Maybe we'll see you back here on the show. And I'm joined, of course, as always, not even as always, but this week by my entire co-hosting crew. That's right. It's great to have the Fearsome Foursome back together. Ryan, Revelations Per Minute Permison, the man, the myth, the mouth. Where can folks find you online?
Yeah, when I'm not chanting the corruption's name and supporting everything I do, because corruption's the best thing since sliced bread, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Ryan or PM5. I got tons of shows, tons of things that I'm doing. Check out my show, And I Quote, where I interview content creators of all shapes and sizes on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's an awful lot of fun. And also, you can catch me here on this very program at Comic Books, The New Class is a new show we just started up a couple weeks ago. It's a monthly show. Next episode will drop in a couple of weeks with my co-host, Krayley Vanest of Phoenix Sisters Cosplay. You can find that on the back of the Cereal Box Podcast Network, where we introduce new readers to the wide and wonderful world of comics and give them some tips and recommendations on certain titles and certain things they can start with to learn more about a certain character or a certain property, whichever you're up for. We're always happy to hear your questions when the shows go live. So make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Phenomena.
All right, it's been fun having him back on the show, at least 92% of the show this week. Keith Kilduff, you are here, you are ready, and you are online as well. Tell the people what you're doing.
I'm taking way too much airtime on this episode at KeithKilduff89, Twitter and Instagram. Back to you, Will.
Chris Barnes, the man who is definitely pleased with Keith's internet connection today, going to edit it all and make us look good, at least a little better than we already do. Chris Barnes, what's going on with you?
It'll be fine. I know it will. You could just follow me on Twitter, Instagram at ChrisBarnes_UK and sat on a fence near you.
I am, of course, the Elk. You can find me at Kelk Andrew on Twitter. I occasionally announce movie battle over with the Flying Cow himself, and you can check those out. I'm sure they'll be dropping real soon. We're going to go ahead and say as well for all of you out there, don't forget, if you like the show, hey, like the show, hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe if you're listening. We are available wherever podcasts are found, and you can leave us a comment here on the show. We do respond. We would love to hear what you think. Maybe you disagree with some of our opinions. Definitely not mine, but maybe the other guys. Who knows? You can hit us up there. You can hit us up at the @ThisWeekFCL Twitter account. Of course, we're hoping to cover more of the FCL soon. Oh, that's right. That's right. David's got it right up above his head there at This Week FCL. And we're going to be back next week as well to break it all down. You know, we love every form of movie trivia here. Free for all or no, we're always here. Keith bringing the stats. Ryan bringing all of that information, that opinion that you love so much. Chris Barnes bringing a man who just doesn't want to make a decision most weeks. And, of course, I'm here to fill space. David Campbell, again, it has been a pleasure having you here with us. Fans, folks, friends, it has been a pleasure having all of you join us as well. Tune in next time, and we'll all be here to see you next week on This Week in the Schmoedown.